In this PowerPoint, we will talk about the arguments for Pluto being a planet and against Pluto being a planet. Pluto was discovered in 1930 by Clyde Tombaugh. Tombaugh was from Streator, Illinois, had no college education, and came from a farming family. Tombaugh was hired by the Lowell Observatory and joined many others at the time who were searching for Planet X that was disturbing Neptune's orbit. He used light-sensitive paper to record images and then used a blink compactor to flip back and forth between images and spot movements. On March 13, 1930, the Lowell Observatory announced that Tombaugh had discovered the ninth planet. An English schoolgirl sent a note to the Lowell Observatory wanting to name the planet after the god of the underworld, Pluto. Neil deGrasse Tyson played a large part in beginning the controversy over Pluto's status. In 2000, Tyson designed the Hayden Planetarium, where he placed Pluto far away from the other planets. When this change was recognized by many children, a story was published in the New York Times titled, "Pluto's Not a Planet, Only in New York." Tyson's intention wasn't to kick Pluto out of the solar system, but to make people think about it differently. He saw that Pluto's composition, size, and distance from the Sun contributed to it being different from the other planets. Pluto has many characteristics that seem to align with other planets and some that do not. For instance, Pluto is round, not potato-shaped like a meteor. Pluto's orbit takes about 248 years, and its orbit is much more elliptical and inclined to the ecliptic plane than any other planet. It is also the only planet that crosses the orbit of another planet. In this case, that planet is Neptune. When looking at this figure, you can see that Pluto's orbit is very elliptical and tilted relative to the ecliptic. And you can see where Pluto crosses Neptune's orbit for 20 years. Thankfully, there is no danger of collision for the two planets because of orbital resonance, where Neptune completes 3 orbits for every 2 of Pluto's. Pluto's size is also much different from the other planets. If Pluto were to come to the United States, it would stretch only from California to Kansas, and its mass is less than that of Earth's moon. Pluto also has a thin atmosphere. It is composed of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide that is vaporized from the surface ice. It also has a comet-like composition of ice and rock. The temperature of Pluto is around 40 Kelvin, and it also has light and dark objects on its surface. One region of Pluto has a bright, harp-shaped section that is composed largely of solid nitrogen ice. The rest of Pluto exhibits mostly a pale brown tint. Pluto's surface also contains some mountains that are several kilometers tall and must be made of water and ice. Pluto also has 5 known moons: Charon, Hydra, Nix, Styx, and Kerberos. You can see Pluto's moons and where they are located in this figure. Charon, the biggest, is located closest to Pluto, and as you get further out, you can see its other moons and how they orbit Pluto. Charon, Pluto's largest moon, is so big that the 2 objects orbit a space in between. This leaves many people with the question of how do you know which one is the planet? From the New Horizons discoveries, astronomers were able to see that Charon contains canyons that are comparable to the Grand Canyon. Mike Brown's discovery also led to more controversy over Pluto's status. He had set out to find an object in the Kuiper Belt that was bigger than Pluto. He discovered Ares that was bigger than Pluto and had to decide whether it was a planet or a Kuiper Belt object because the IAU could not name it without knowing the answer to that question. Brown felt fraudulent calling his discovery a planet with gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn that were much larger than his discovery. However, he decided that this discovery fell into the category of the old definition of planet, and this led to committees assembling to newly define the word planet. In the 2006 IAU meeting, They defined a planet as a moderately large object that orbits a star and shines primarily reflecting light from its star. An object can be considered a planet only if it orbits a star, it is large enough for its own gravity to make it round, and it has cleared most other objects from its orbital path. This led Pluto and Eris to be voted as dwarf planets. However, this led to much controversy because when is there ever voting done in science? This definition led to protests because Pluto was no longer a planet and held a spot in the hearts of many Americans. New Mexico declared that Pluto was still a planet within its borders, and Illinois followed. There was also a petition within the IAU that followed against Pluto not being a planet. This controversy over which category Pluto belongs to shows that there needs to be a new definition created based on scientific fact. There are two examples that show why Pluto needs to be defined differently. The Star Trek definition says that by looking at something in space, you should be able to tell if it is a planet. You shouldn't have to find if the zone is cleared. The other definition that helps to think of different types of planets is that you can have a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. Both are considered dogs, even though there's an enormous difference in size. This is where we get dwarf planets, an object that orbits the sun and is massive enough for its own gravity to have made it nearly round in shape, but that does not qualify as an official planet because it has not cleared its orbital neighborhood. This still gives Pluto planet status, but shows that it is much different than the other planets that are in our solar system. Pluto lost planet status because of its differences in composition, size, and distance from the sun that made it much different than the other planets. It also shares the outer solar system with thousands of other icy objects, part of the Kuiper Belt, that makes it seem as though it belongs to a different family. Because of the discovery of Eris, which had a slightly larger mass than Pluto, in 2006, astronomers voted to demote Pluto to a dwarf planet and change the definition of planet. Pluto does have many characteristics that align with the other planets in our solar system, but it also has many characteristics that are vastly different.